Hey everyone, good evening. This is Chris Miles here, cash flow expert and the financial advocate for the entrepreneur. Hey, excited to be here tonight because I'm going to share something with you that I think is perfect timing, if you're going to be, especially if you're going to be doing any holiday shopping in the next week or so. This is actually one of the first presentations I did when I launched Money Ripples a couple years back, but I never recorded it. So this time I'm actually going to record it so you have it for your listening pleasure all the time. In fact, that was actually more of a listening pleasure more than it was something that was more just, it was more just a conference call. So this is going to be more webinar, something more interactive, which I encourage you to do. I appreciate all the chats going in already. This is perfect. I love having communications, especially if there's questions you have along the way. Please ask away. My whole purpose here is to get you through as much content as possible without killing you, but at the same time having some fun and things that are very practical, things you can use right now, right away. Um, so I love having extra cash. It's all about cash flow because cash flow does create freedom, doesn't it? I mean, if you think about your life, I mean, how much awesome is life when you have more cash flow coming in than what's going out, or more income coming in than what's going out? When there's more coming in and less going out, you feel great, don't you? Isn't that really freedom? And I think of it this way, is that when you have more cash flow, it creates more options. And it's because you have more options that's why you have more freedom. And so this is why I focus on this. I don't care about having $2 million in my savings account. That would be nice and all, but that's not the real purpose of what creates freedom. I've seen people with lots and lots of money, but not be truly free. They're stuck. They feel trapped to their money. However, if you know you have more than enough money coming in every month that you don't have to worry about paying your bills, how does that feel? Does that feel pretty good? It does, doesn't it? Now, on the flip side, when you have less cash flow, it creates more worry, right? Less cash flow is not a good thing. And what I mean by cash flow is what's the difference between your income and your expenses? If your income is here and your expenses are here, you're happy. If it's the other way around, if your expenses are up here and your income's down here, this is where there's stress. This is where there's worry. This is where there's no sleep, no fun. Therefore, it's just not cool, right? It's no good. And so here, more income, yay. Less, boo, right? We like to have more, and this is where real freedom comes. I first learned this when I was 28 years old. I actually quit being a financial planner back in 2006. I had done that for 4 years, and I realized the one thing really quick, and that's that it just doesn't work. And so 2006, I said, I'm going to do a little bit differently. I'm going to think differently. I'm going to act differently. I'm going to focus on cash flow, not so much on accumulating money and saving and hoarding. And what it ended up happening is I was able to retire when I was 28 with only a few $1,000s in the bank, but I had more than enough income coming in to cover my expenses from things that really were just more residual income. They weren't. They were more passive-like. I don't like to use the word passive because I don't believe in getting something for nothing. But I had my business set up in a way that money was coming in. And it wasn't a network marketing business. It was actually purely just a normal business being a consultant. And I did very good stuff that way where I was able to retire when I was 28. Anything I made above and beyond that was just gravy. It was awesome. And I found out that's where real financial freedom was, especially when money does not dictate your life. When you feel like you're free, it's awesome. And so we want to have more money. We want to have more cash flow because that creates less stress. And I'll tell you, I mean, in the worst of times, I've used some of the same techniques I'm going to be teaching you tonight that actually helped me overcome a $900,000 hole, almost $1 million hole, and I was able to pay off over 900,000 bucks in about 3 years. And I'm going to teach some of those very strategies tonight too to help you with that. This is a picture of my family last Christmas as we're freezing to death here in Utah, out in the Christmas lights in Salt Lake City. And 2 years ago, I actually left my previous company. I had helped create a company and was with them for almost 6 years. And then October 2012, we had a meeting together, and it was decided that we just needed to quit. That we needed to separate. I wanted to go do more speak and do more things. I wanted to hit a bigger audience, especially those of you that are entrepreneurs. I wanted to focus on you quite a bit because at that time I was focusing only on chiropractors and dentists primarily. And so I wanted to get to a bigger market and to help more and help serve more people. And so we split. And I remember that year was pretty stressful because I had paid off a lot of debt over the course of those previous years. But now I found myself where I was starting from scratch. And I even had a non-compete agreement with that previous company, meaning I could not use any of my old relationships. All the old clients I had, I couldn't go to them and say, hey, pay me instead. They could only come to me, and I couldn't go market to them. And so I had to start over from scratch, brand new, launch Money Ripples with absolutely no clients, no real key relationships yet at that point, and just starting from scratch. In fact, I launched it publicly through Facebook. That was it. And it was a real tough time because obviously I still have the bills to pay. I still have to feed my family and everything else. But now I didn't have the income coming in, right? And savings can only go so long, lines of credit and so forth. And so I had to get pretty creative, especially when you're launching a new company with a website and everything, right? And so I knew at that moment, I said, I want to make sure that I'm not stressed for money. Because when you're stressed for money in business, you cannot make more money. Have any of you guys noticed that before? You're stressed about money, that's when you tend to not make money. And so because I was in that situation, I wanted to make sure I wasn't ever stressed. I didn't come off desperate. I knew I had to figure out how to free some money up, make more money all at the same time. And by doing a few of these strategies, I was actually able to save $1,819 a month within a few weeks. And this is actually, because this is October, this is right before the holiday season, that actually helped. So we did have a Christmas because, I actually like to have Christmas with my family. I'm sure you do too. And so I wanted to make sure that I could have my cake and eat it too, and be in a safe place where I didn't stress so much about the money. And so I'm going to share you a few of those points today. Now, normally, my average client that I work with, and this is over 500, almost 600 clients, we've averaged about $33,000 in the first year alone that we find every single year. And that's a lot of times ongoing year after year. I mean, you can imagine, that's after 30 years, that's like $1 million. That's pretty awesome. And that's presuming you don't do anything with it but put it under a couch, right? You just bury it in the ground and do nothing with it. That's not even talking about putting that back in your businesses or putting back into some kind of investments that make you more money. And so this can have a very big compound effect that's humongous. Now, before we get started on these strategies, they have to make you understand that it's principles first, strategies second. So a big key factor I learned from one of my friends is that this is right when I was just starting to understand some of this stuff. He said, Chris, principles are eternal. They never end. They're always the same. However, strategies can change. Principles are eternal, but strategies can change with time. There's a big difference. See, a lot of people will tell you that principles and strategies are the same, and they're not. You got to understand the principles first, because what I'm teaching you tonight, there's a lot of very creative, and in some cases, some of these strategies could be very disturbing to a few of you. They could be a little bit testing on your faith and if this would work. And this is why you have to understand these principles first, because if not, if you don't understand these principles, I'm telling you, whatever I teach you tonight could possibly implode on you and not work. So I want to make sure you have the best odds of success. Is everybody okay with that? For those of you that are on here that you could type in the chat there, just chat and say, hey, I'm with you. Let's go. Let's rock. Whatever you want to say. Yep. Great, Melissa. Great. I see several of you typing in. It's working now. Good. Jen, you're just barely getting going too. Awesome. Let's move it forward. I like principles first. All right, let's do that. So this is one mantra I live by, and this actually works in my business too. Any of you that are Seinfeld fans, there was an episode called Opposite, or Do the Opposite, I think it was called. Jerry Seinfeld was saying to George Costanza, he said, if every instinct you have is wrong, then the opposite would have to be right. If you've noticed, a lot of things about money are pretty much jacked up, aren't they? For lack of a better term. I mean, you're told to be cheap. You're told to never spend, to sacrifice, suffer, never enjoy life until you hit this magical age of 65 or something like that. And in reality, it just doesn't really work. And this is something I learned as a financial planner. All the things that they teach, for the most part, there's a few good things, but for the most part, they really don't give you financial freedom at all. In fact, some of them are like overpromise and underdeliver. And some of you already know this to be true. But one thing I live by, and this is how I was actually able to retire when I was 28, is I just did everything the opposite, like I said earlier. If everything we thought was right is actually wrong, then probably doing the opposite will give us better odds of success, right? And so So this is where we have to start with these principles. The first thing you have to understand is that there's three types of perspectives around money. The first one's a spender. Spenders, what do they do really well? They spend, right? Spenders tend to spend money. If you're ever giving them extra money, they think, wow, now I can finally go do this, or I can finally have this. It's usually something about what they can spend that money on right away, right? And that can be okay within reason, but a lot of times people can go way above and beyond. They can almost be gamblers or just almost need spenders anonymous if it goes too far. That's in an area of scarcity. And I show this curve here because I'm showing you where the money is and where it's not. So on this left-hand side, there's just no money there. Like, it's really not a good place to be. Now on the right-hand side is also scarcity, and these are savers. Savers are really good at saving, obviously. They tend to not want to spend money. They want to pay off all their debt, and any extra dollar they have, they want to save it away. They want to cash it away and just leave it there. They want to sit on it like a squirrel with nuts, right? I was actually raised by two parents that were really on both of these realms, and so it's kind of funny to see how both of these work. Both of them have virtues within them, but they're usually based in scarcity. Both of these, spender or saver, are usually based in fear. They're usually based in not understanding abundance, really, and not being a wise steward, which is what the middle section is. We want you to be a wise steward. We don't want you to follow like most financial advice, which is all saver mentality. See, it's always about minimizing and not having a life. It's always about not increasing or growing. It's about trying to just cash away money, right? Saver perspective. You don't see any spenders really giving financial advice. They don't get listened to too often. But savers get listened to probably way too much. But stewards are more rare. A steward takes the best of the spender and the saver and puts it into one person. So for example, type in the chat here for those of you who are on right now, how many of you would say you're more of a spender? Type which one you think you are. If you're more of on the spender side, do you lean more towards the saver? Which half do you tend to lean towards? Let's see what kind of group we have here. Got lots of responses coming in. Steward saver, we got in the middle. And a lot of you that work with me, we talk about how to get in the middle, don't we? Yeah. Depends on my cash flow. Good one, yeah, I like that. Steward spender, great, yeah. And just so you know, not everybody's on the far extremes of this. Usually you're going to fall somewhere in the middle, somewhere in the spectrum. You might lean one side or the other, and that's fine. This is important to remember because if you tend to lean towards the spender side, for example, you want to take a lesson from the savers, which is thinking a little bit, being a little bit wiser with your money, and taking some time to understand how you can be better with it. Because see, stewards are always trying to increase it. They're always trying to grow it. They're trying to make it better. Stewards are trying to be wise with it and not let that money go to waste. But not a waste of a standpoint of a saver. The savers never want anything to go to waste. See, stewards are still willing to spend money, which is the good thing. That's why spenders can understand stewards too, just like savers can. See, stewards want to use money because money is meant to be used. They want it to go out because money's like water. It's got to flow out and flow back in. It's got to flow both ways. Spenders just let it flow out and it never comes back. Savers let it flow in and they never let it go, and both end up being broke. Emotionally, financially broke. No matter how much money they have or how little money they have, they're in the same category. But stewards, they say, well, how can I make this better? How can I make it improve and grow? How can I be the wisest steward of my resources so that I can create more value for people and bless more lives? How can I beautify things, improve upon things, and expand and grow? It's always about making things better. And so if you're leaning on the spender side, what you want to do on the spender side is you want to lean more towards the saver. How can I be a little bit wiser with this? I'm willing to let money go, but am I willing to let money come back in? Am I willing to let something not just go to waste, but can it create a return for me? Savers are more willing to let it stay, but they got to be willing to let it go. So if you lean more towards the saver side, or that's more how you've been indoctrinated, you got to be willing to let the money go and use it in ways that are productive. Because if you're not willing to let it go, you won't make more. Plain and simple. So that's one of the big things. Now let's get into some of these strategies, okay? Because this is where you got to be a wise steward. You got to understand that any of these strategies I teach, you might take all of them. Some of you are more likely to take a few of these, And when you take these, some of this is temporary. This may not be a permanent situation where you're only doing this. You may not do this long term, but this is a good way to free up cash. The reason why I want you to free up cash right now is because I'd rather have you free up the cash and use it for the holidays, and it might be to pay off loans. You could have other reasons, not just, it may not be Christmas presents. It might be for other reasons too. But to free up this money so that it can be used more productively. And ideally, we don't want you to be in a place, for those of you that might be in different situations, some of you might have plenty of cash flow. You just want to be wiser with it or know what to do with it more. Some of you might be struggling on the cash flow. If you're struggling on the cash flow side, I'd rather you not go into credit card debt, right? I actually don't mind debt. We'll talk about this a little bit when it's used wisely. If it's used wisely, I don't mind debt as much. But you got to be careful because I much rather have you guys do these things wisely and not to charge a credit card. Does that make sense? So I want you guys to have more than enough positive cash flow. Everybody with me so far? Okay, good. So number one, the first thing you can do, I call this the 5% challenge. For some of you that have seen me speak before or seen me teach this before, I'm trying to bring up a few new areas that you guys haven't seen before. So I love to throw people curves because there's seriously, for money leaks, ways I see people lose money, both from the income or the expense side, there's at least a couple dozen that I've counted, and it just keeps growing, that list. And so I decided to throw this one in. 5% challenge is this, is looking at each of the areas of where you're spending money and just ask yourself, hey, can I just spend 5% less in this area? Could I spend 5% less on my phone bill, on my internet, 5% less on a loan? Can I spend 5% less on utilities, 5% less on groceries, 5% less on eating out? If you really look at all the areas, 5% doesn't sound like a lot. For example, if you spend $100 a month, that's only $5 a month you want it to be less. So can you get something from 100 down to 95? That's it. But think about it this way. A lot of people I work with and a lot of people I know, usually their expenses will be at least 5,000, 6,000, sometimes way higher than that per month. So even if you were down the low end, maybe you're spending about $5,000 a month. Well, 5% of that's $250 a month. That's still decent. That's $3,000 a year back in your pocket. Could you have that money back? Some of you that spend $10,000 a month, that would actually be $500 a month. And so it's not a big, humongous, earth-shattering thing, but it does make a difference. So 5%, finding ways to do that, and this is where you might shop around. One key area that I don't always mention, people a lot of times I'll see they'll have cable TV, or maybe they'll have like a bundle package like Comcast or Dish, whatever, those kind of services. You might bundle internet and home phone and all this stuff into one. And then I'll ask them, I said, as a steward, how are you doing with all this stuff? Are you usually using this stuff more for, are you just using it for DVR stuff? Are you just DVRing things? What are you doing with it? And a lot of times people will say, well, no, I'm doing more than that. I'm doing more than DVR. I said, okay, and sometimes they don't. So they'll say, no, it's just DVRing shows, we hardly use the TV. Okay, if that's the case, maybe get something like Roku, the Roku box, or Apple TV, which I paid $60 for the box, and now I pay $17 a month between Netflix for watching movies and shows and reruns, and another, and that total $17 also includes Hulu Plus, so I can watch the current shows on right now. And so I watch everything I need. I even watched the presidential debates a couple years ago using that. So I pay $60 one time, and then I pay $17 a month for TV. I have standalone internet. I pay like $50 a month for that or so, give or take. And that's pretty much it. I use cell phones, and that's it. No home phone or anything. Easily freed up for myself well over $100 a month plus. I think almost $200 a month with what we used to have. I've had a lot of clients free up at least 50 doing that. And so little things like that. You may not be able to free up money in one area, but you might be able to free up 10, 15, 20% in another. So really looking at it. And I show Mint.com because if you use Mint.com, which I recommend people do for their personal money, look through that. See where you can find money to free that up. And so that's a great place to go for free to be able to find those numbers. And I talk a lot about Mint on other conversations I have. Number 2, sell stuff. So I know this doesn't seem too earth-shattering, but a lot of us have a lot of extra stuff that we need. I'm part of a few Facebook groups. Some of you are part of this, I know. where we talk about that, and some people talk about releasing and getting rid of things so that new things can come in, creating that space. That's awesome. Now, I say sell stuff. You could just donate it, and that's fine. It won't really make you money, but you can. Well, giving it away, I should say. Donating, you can actually make a little bit of money. You can donate up to $500 to Goodwill and write that off on your taxes without having to itemize. Now, over $500, if you really do have a lot of stuff, if it's over 500 bucks, you do need to have an itemized list of the different things you donated and how you were able to do that and write off on your taxes. So for some of you, you can free up a little bit of cash right there. And we'll talk about taxes in a minute too. But could you sell things? Could you barter and exchange things? Could you exchange gifts possibly? Do you have something that somebody else would want? Or can you just sell it online on Craigslist? Or people that are local around here might use something like KSL.com. There's one summer we actually needed some extra cash. We seriously sold over $2,000 of items just using just online, just private party sales, nothing complex. Just put the stuff online. People said, "Hey, we'll give you this." We said, "Perfect, we'll take it," and that's how it worked. So that is a big key right there. So that's another one. Is can you sell stuff, donate it, whatever it might be. Those are some easy ones. Sorry, I just realized I unplugged some things to get some extra light on my face for here, and then my power's just about to go out here. So let me plug in really quick here, just for a second. Okay, we're back. So thanks for that commercial break. Hopefully you guys had fun. Yeah, hopefully you got a nice little Christmas treat or whatever it might be, or you made your Thanksgiving meal, whatever. So thanks for that. My battery life doesn't work as long anymore. So anyways, moving on. So selling things, spooky Halloween. So anyways, yeah. So definitely selling stuff is big. You want to make sure that you're selling things that you're just not using. My mantra is, if you're not going to use it, lose it, right? Whatever you're not going to use, as a steward, stewards want to make things. They want to improve and grow upon it, make it work better. So if you're not going to use it, find ways to lose it. You find ways to get rid of it. Either give it away to somebody, donate it, or sell it. So, make sense? Good so far? Okay, moving on. This one gets to be a lot of fun. This is actually where, for me personally, I found some of the most money in that time, that $1,819 a month, the $1,819 a month. A lot of it came from doing this. This is awesome. I've never had somebody on the webinar say, "Hey, I've got something for sale. Who wants it?" Caitlin, that's amazing. That's awesome. I'm glad you're using that to your advantage. If anybody wants to buy a triathlon bike, it is for sale. Those of you on YouTube later on, you might miss out. So that's awesome. So restructuring debt. So here's a few things you can do. One, especially right now, is you can refinance things. This could be things like your cars. It could be student loans. It could be even credit cards. You might be able to negotiate lower rates, things to be able to free up some more cash. You can call them up and ask if they have any promotions for you. The big one is definitely a home. A lot of people have seen lately, they've seen values go up, and they've also seen interest rates stay down. This is a very good thing. Can you use that money to potentially pay off and consolidate a lot of your loans? Some of you might be able to do that, some of you might not, but I'll tell you, I mean, that's one way that you could free up a ton of money, and I've had a lot of clients do that. I had one client where they're in their 60s and they're thinking, my goodness, we're working like dogs in our business and we don't know where to free up the cash. And then I mentioned this, and all of a sudden it was funny how in their minds they said, wait, that's possible, we could do this. And in fact, their whole goal was they wanted to go and serve in a church mission 5 years from now. And I said, guys, the only way you're going to be able to do that is by actually restructuring your loans and free up the cash. Because even after 5 years, if they put every dollar they had into the house, they might have it paid off. Problem is, if they have it all paid off and no savings, they can't go and do what they want to do. They can't go. They have to keep making money just to have more savings again. They'd have to spend decades, and they may never go on that mission. But I said, let's free up the cash, keep the money in savings, and have that so you'll make it possible. And so we did. We freed up $2,000 a month just doing that alone. The thing that's awesome too is if you happen to refinance any loans right now, many of you have noticed that you skip a payment. So if you refinance this, right now it's November at the time of this recording. Let's say it does close before December, you skip December's payment and you don't have a payment until January. Here's what's really cool though. If you end up closing in the first part of December, you actually skip that into January, meaning February 1st or February whatever is your first payment. Now this could be good because some of you might say, well, if we time it right, hey, my payment's not due till the 5th, or maybe it's on the 1st, but it's not late until 30 days, or I don't get a late charge until 14 days. You get that couple week window, you might be able to skip 2 months payment because, you might say, well, December I don't have to pay because even though I go past the due date a little bit, not a problem. I don't pay that. I go past the due date, they refinance, I don't have to pay that one anymore, and I don't have to pay January. February 1st will be my first payment. So in some cases, I used to teach this a lot when I did mortgages. I said, hey, if you guys want, you can skip 2 payments by doing it this way. So obviously they tag it to the back of the loan, but that could be a way to free up a lot of cash right now. Now let me get to something a little bit more creative. Now, if you've got anything like car loans or student loans, primarily these two, a lot of times what you can do is you can call up those companies and ask them, say, hey, is there anything you got going where we could skip a month's payment? Now, if it's car loan, they might actually already be offering this. A lot of times they do it right around this time of year. They're not offering it as much anymore. They used to do this all the time, but I think with people abusing credit, they don't do this anymore. By the way, when I teach this, this comes right back to that stewardship. You've got to be in the stewardship perspective for this to work. If you go and blow money, it just goes to waste completely. This isn't a good thing, right? So I'm not encouraging you just to blow money. But if you're going to do this, one thing you do is you can ask them to skip a payment or sometimes even 2. So what I did is I actually called up both the auto loan companies I had and my student loan companies. This is where I made a lot of that money back. And I said, hey, is there a way, and student loans can be even longer than 2 months or a month. Car loans will go about a month, no problem, not a big deal. 12 months. So they can go for a little while. I called them up and said, hey, I'm starting a business a little bit tight. Can I get either a permit or different terms for it? Can I give me a way to skip a month or 2 months student loan if you have a student loan? Again, I'm teaching this because can you use a credit card and not use a credit card? I would much rather you have gain a little bit of interest on a car loan or a student loan than you would on a massive interest on a credit card. That makes sense. And so I did that. Hey, can we skip a few months? Some of them I skipped 6 or 12 months, like student loans. We didn't have a lot of student loans, but we had a little bit. It did make a difference. Car loans made a huge difference in those first few months of our business and getting it going. So it really gave us that extra cash that we needed to get things moving. So skipping loan payments is a very definite thing. Home loan, you can't really do that so much. But auto loans and other things like that, those things can all work. So good so far. So yeah, so definitely call, refinance if you can. If you can't refinance, see if you can restructure the loan and see if you can get ways to skip payments. Skip 1, 2 months or more if it's a student loan. All right. Am I still choppy? Some of you said I was a little pixelated or something like that. Maybe my ear might be pixelated there. So everybody still hear me okay? I think still good. This is our second commercial break right now. Okay, reception's choppy, choppy, choppy. Okay, well, interesting. Well, we'll see how the recording comes out. Hopefully it comes out good. If not, I might have to do it again. So, first one. Let's double check and make sure my internet's still going good, still going strong. Great. All right, that's better. Good. Okay, next one here. Taxes. All right. Now, let me start off by saying this. I am not an accountant. I'm not that nerd that you see on that screen right there. So I'm not that guy, right? I'm not him. So, but I will tell you this: is that here's a few strategies that I've seen people be able to use to their advantage. It's been great. So let me start off by talking about those of you that are actually more employees. You're not business owners, but you're employees. Most of you, by the time you get about August, September, have already paid everything you pay in taxes. If you're getting a tax refund at the end of each year, the thing is the government's just borrowing your money and having you overpay and then paying you a 0% rate of return on that money. But what if we could take that money right now? So if normally if you say you get a $3,000 tax return every year, if that's the case, that means you're overpaying by $250 a month. This also means you probably already overpaid that money by this point, at this time of year. One thing I used to do when I worked for a company is I used to go tax exempt about the time that bonus checks would come out for Christmas. So I'd about late November on, I was just whole year going tax exempt. Some people would say, "How in the heck did you get such a big bonus?" It's a secret. I'm just saying. So that's one thing you could do right there is with taxes, you can free up just say hit tax exempt, maybe increase our exemptions. And you want to talk to your accountant to see what you can actually do. Because if you're going to end up paying taxes, it may not be the best idea, but definitely it's something that can work and it can keep you from using your credit card. For those of you in business, just did a tax webinar last week. Some of you might have been on it, some of you weren't. I would definitely check that out. You can search it on YouTube, Chris Miles webinar tax or something like that. You'll find one about how to save some money on taxes. So I give a ton of tips there. Things like even how you pay rent for your home. How you pay rent for that. Days use, not for a whole month. Ways to free up tax there. Hiring your kids. Mileage, travel, all kinds of things. There's all kinds of ways you can free up money in taxes. The thing is, if you can save it, let's go for it. So taxes are a big, big deal. And they can even work today, even though it's not tax time right now. You can still free up that cash right now by keeping that money in your pocket. So taxes are very, very one. But again, I'm not an accountant. Check with your accountant on that one to be sure the specifics of how you can go about doing that. Sound good? So right there. Fifth one, stopping contributions. If any of you are putting money to 401ks or IRAs or things like that on a monthly basis or on every paycheck basis, stop it temporarily to free up the cash right now. This is temporary. You might want to go back to this. Those of you that work with me, you probably won't go back to this. So I find other better alternatives than just throwing money into something you can never touch. But that's something you could definitely do to free up some cash. So are you putting money away into things? Even people that have life insurance policies, you stop putting in for a couple months and are back up again. There's still ways to do that, and yeah, great way to do that as well. So you can stop those functions temporarily and go back to them later after the beginning of the year. So great to do there. This last one I want to put is earning income. Because we talk about how to save more on the expense side, but what about on the income side, right? What about making more money here? Because you can only cut expenses so far. So you're living for bucks and you're trying to thermostat for in the winter time and you're trying to save a couple bucks in your electric or your gas bill. I don't recommend that. I don't recommend you being cheap and just suffering so much to do that. Making more money can't happen. Naturally, things you can get a part-time job, you can go get a second job, you can work overtime job or whatever it might be. If you like that, you can do that. Those are fine and those are fine and handy. There might be things you can do where you take a hobby and into a business or a side business to make more money. Could you make some crafts or something like that? Could you bake? Could you do some things where you do bake stuff? We got for example, we have I get people sometimes like the kids in our neighborhood. They'll actually go and take trash cans to the curb, and they do that every Tuesday night, like tonight. They do that every Tuesday night. They take them out to the curb and charge $5 a month. Sweet, awesome. Very easy to do. It's amazing how kids sometimes make money so much simpler than we make it, isn't it? I mean, so there's still to do there. Now, for those of you in business, you don't necessarily have to do those things. Other ways you can drum up and increase business right now. Your special right now. Some of your retail, some service things. Can you do some things to kind of stir some things up? Maybe you offer something that says, hey, I'm going to offer a bonus. I'm going to offer some extra value. Because here's the key. If you want to make more money, stop asking how you can make more money. Don't ask how you can earn more income anymore. That's the wrong question to ask. Ask yourself, how can I serve more people? How can I create more value? How can I solve more problems for more people? That is the real secret. Dollars follow value. So if you want to make more money, you got to figure out, well, what can I do to offer more value to people? And can I offer more value to more people? You know, is there something I can do that I can offer something that's simple, it's easy? Maybe it doesn't require more time. Maybe it's just a resource. Maybe you get something. You remember we talked about stewardship, right? If you're not using it, lose it. Well, sometimes if you're not using something, maybe if you think you created from years ago, but maybe you haven't taken it off the shelf, so to speak, and brushed the dust off. You say, yeah, I'm going to resurrect this again. I'm going to bring this back. Maybe you offer it for $5, $10, whatever it may be. It's a useful tool or something you have. Get really creative and find out what are things you can do to add value to people's lives. What do people want right now? What complaints do they have? Do you have something to meet that? Are they constantly asking questions all saying, hey, what do you about this? Or, hey, can you do this? You're getting to all the time about the same things. I call that get a clue. Because people are basically telling you they want to hand you over money to do something. So give them that opportunity. Serve them. Give them the ability for them to be able to accomplish something that they truly value. And so this is the right time you can do that. And honestly, especially in November, amazing time. Like people are really willing to do it. And I'll tell you, even some of my Decembers have been my best months. It's not always just, it's some people believe they're seasonal things, and there are to some degree. But you can convert that. If you already know December will be a slow month, usually, you can do right now, speed that up. So lots of ways you can be able to make more money as well as save more money here. Okay, that's on the seminar right now. How have you got at least one thing you think you might take action on? Let's see what you guys say. See some people type now. Okay, here is the question. Michael says, of all these tips that I gave, the last 6 ones I gave here, what's at least one thing you're going to implement on? What's one idea you got? I can do this right now. Okay, now we're seeing some more typing. Okay, by earn income, more client. Absolutely. Earning money, it's limitless. Expenses go down so far. That's the 5% things there, but you can always make more. The numbers on eBay and Etsy this week. Great, Melissa. I love it. That's great. Use Kathy, thank you. Stuff. All right, well, good. So we're gonna move on here. So I want to talk about people that have done this as well. Now, some of you might know one of my clients, Leslie Householder, author of the Jackrabbit Factor. She's awesome. You know, she's actually just like everybody else. We all have money leaks, right? And her and her husband Trevin found great money leaks. I'll tell you, like by finding those leaks, you can find a lot there. You know, but I'll tell you something. Sometimes I don't know. I mean, we talk about we want to do these things, but are we really committed? Are we really committed to doing what we know we need to do? You know, or are we like empty calories? Are we like Doritos, right? Are we just making empty promises but never really doing this? This is key because if you want good momentum going into 2015, what better time than now to really make that happen? And so are we really committed? And so what needs to change in your life? Well, one, you do have to know your numbers. You have to know what's going on financially because here's what happens. Here's about being a wise steward. If you free up all this money, if you're not wise with it and you're not understanding what's going on with your money, you will lose it. You will spend it and say, where did it all go? Was this any good for me? And that's what I don't want to do. I don't want to teach you a lot of these things. And I'll tell you, there's thousands of dollars, at least hundreds of dollars a month that you guys should be able to find from some of these tricks here. And I've even got more than this too, that as some of you already know. What's your mindset around money? Is it a stressful thing or is it a pleasant thing? Is it something that is more abundant or is it something that's scarce? How are you talking about money? Are you talking differently about it than what you should be doing? Are you talking about how there's never enough? Are you talking about how you can't afford it? Which isn't true. It's always priorities. You can always afford whatever you prioritize. So when I say that, instead of saying I can't afford it, I say I just don't want it, or just it's just not important to me right now, and that's okay. I tell my kids. I remember one of my kids came home from first grade, and I said, no, we're not going to buy that. He says, well, is it because we can't afford it? And I laughed. I said, no, that's not it at all. I just don't want to buy it. I don't think it's worth it. It's good. There's no value. There's not enough value for me to want to justify it. Well, then don't buy it. So again, you got to have a different mindset around money, still from an abundant place. That hey, if I want it, I will get it. I will find a way to be able to make this happen. There's a can-do attitude here. You got to also be willing to do what's right for your family. What's going to be best for you guys. I get some people, they'll say, I've got, I got a CPA or an accountant. I don't know if he's really doing a good job for me, but I just really like them. Well, the question I ask you is this: who is more important, your family or their family? Because if you're saying you want to pay them, and it means you have to overpay in taxes. I just got some new clients where I know they're overpaying by at least $10,000 to $20,000 a year, easily, and just what they're overpaying in taxes. And so I said, well, who do you really prioritize? I mean, sure, this person's a good person, but if you're going to be using them, that's costing your family $10,000 or more dollars a year. Who do you value more? Are you just trying to pay them $200 to pay for their family, or are you going to pay for your family? And so you got to be willing to do what's right for your family, and then be willing to do things a little differently. Sometimes you can do it the opposite. You don't always have to do it the opposite. A lot of times we can do it really well. We just got to do it a little bit differently. Alyssa is a great example. She's a business coach in New York. She actually just claimed and did. She just did everything I asked her to do. I said to here, and these are all little things that we found, little money leaks and stuff like that. And the next thing we know, we found another $2,300 a month right there. And the thing is, she wasn't making huge, huge dollars. This $2,300 meant a lot to their family, right? This was a big deal. It wasn't like they're making $2 million a year and it was just a drop in the bucket. This made a big, significant difference. Matt and Carrie out in Florida, they're a chiropractor and a health coach. They did one little change to their finances and they freed up over $2,600 a month. It doesn't have to be hard, but you do have to be committed to it. If you are, you can get more money and cash flow right now, not 20, 30, 40 years from now, but right now. Have better peace of mind. Oh my goodness, I'm listening to a book right now by Napoleon Hill. He's the author of Think and Grow Rich. He actually made a book called Think and Grow Rich with Peace of Mind. And I was recommended this book by one of my friends, Greg Reed. He wrote another Napoleon Hill Foundation book with Sharon Lechter. And he was telling me, he says, Chris, my favorite book is actually this Think and Grow Rich with Peace of Mind. It was one of his last books before he died. And it really came down to ultimately what you think money is or what riches really are. It comes down to peace of mind, happiness, really having something that creates that freedom. So that's huge. Be on the same page with your spouse, your partner. That's one thing I love hearing is when people say, Chris, this actually saved our marriage. Or Chris, for the first time in years or decades, one of my clients, Jeff and Debbie, they went 35 years of marriage not talking to each other about their money. Finally, they're talking to each other about money. He was actually able to quit his job and start up his own business. They have plenty of cash flow to be able to do that, and just loving seeing how they're living their dreams and things are now possible. So getting on the same page is key. You walk together more powerfully when you're together than when you're apart. Would you guys agree? And then less stress and better quality of life and more confidence. I mean, that's what we all want. So here's what I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna actually sell you anything on this at all. But here's one thing I'm gonna offer for the first 7 of you that want to do this. I have a money leak evaluation. Some of you guys have already done this, some of you haven't. And so I definitely invite you guys to do that. Or if you haven't done it for a long time, I invite you to do it again. But we have a money leak evaluation that my consultant, Jeremiah Burns, does. He's been with me for 5 years, absolutely amazing at finding stuff. And it's got some amazing stories in both business and his personal life financially. But normally we've been selling this. We actually started charging now for about $297 to do this consultation, because we really do find good stuff, and Thing is, you could walk away and probably find at least a few $100 a month. You could probably make your money back in a month or two easily. But for the first 7 of you, I'm going to waive that fee, ask him to do that for free. But again, because that is a lot for him to do, I don't want to overburden him. That's something you guys are really interested in doing. Email me the first 7 people, and because it's email, the great thing is it comes right in order. Just put in there. You just put in holiday webinar. You just put that in there as the subject line and say, hey Chris, I would really love to have that money leak evaluation with Jeremiah and see where there's money leaking. Because thing is, you might find a few things on your own, but it's always cool when you have somebody else with a different set of eyes who's not emotionally involved looking at it with you. Because it's a lot more fun to see that and say, oh my goodness, do you guys realize you're losing money here? No, I didn't. Or, yeah, we are, but we just haven't done anything. Okay, cool. When are we going to do it? Are we going to make it happen now or never, right? So definitely email me the first, like I said, I better not say 7. I better say 6. I really don't want to overburden him too much. So the first 6 people that do email me, chris@moneyripples.com. We'll get that set up for you, and I'll do that as a favor for him, from him, to do that for you guys. So that's my Merry Christmas present or holiday present to you guys as well. Hope you enjoyed this. Like I said, the key is that cash flow does create freedom. The more cash you have, it creates more options. More options really create freedom. That is the key. So anyways, guys, hopefully you got value from this. If you have questions, let me know. Like I said, email me at chris@moneyripples.com. And anyways, you guys, thank you so much. You have a great evening. And enjoy the rest of the night and the holidays with your family. We'll see you.